how's it going? My name is Errol E, and welcome to season 2 of Every Moment with Errol E. So today I have an amazing guest, DeShuna Spencer. Now, I wanted to figure out, well, where can I find Black content creators? So I was on LinkedIn one day and I was searching for Black content creators, people who are doing their thing. And well, I stumbled upon DeShuna Spencer's page and I was scrolling through. I was like, this is cool. And then I stumbled upon kweliTV. And I wanted to know, well, what is kweliTV? So as I started diving in, and then I realized, wow, this is truly amazing. It's a streaming service, a Black-owned streaming service. And it got me thinking, well, I don't know any other Black streaming services out there. And this one is pretty amazing. And I started watching various shows on there. Afro Germany, that one's probably my favorite one, that documentary. And the short film, B, yes, like the bug, and many more. So I can't wait to dive in and talk to DeShuna Spencer on everything about kweliTV, more about her. But before we do, let's just dive in a little bit on what is kweliTV.
Have you ever scrolled through one of those popular streaming services for hours and thought,
why can't I find enough high-quality Black films and shows?
Well, now there's a streaming service just for you.
The new TV video network
dedicated to the issues, stories, and culture of the global Black community.
The dopest independent films, documentaries, web shows,
and news from the entire African diaspora.
We're talking content from North America, Europe,
Latin America, the Caribbean,
and Africa.
All in one spot.
Each title is handpicked with us in mind by showing a true representation of the Black experience without all the stereotypical roles and storylines you see in mainstream media.
With new content added every Wednesday.
Monthly subscriptions are just $5.99.
Wait, $5.99? That's cheaper than those other guys.
So what are you waiting for? Join the revolution in Black cinema.
Sorry. Okay, I'm here.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I know that by heart. I wrote the script for that. My first time writing a script.
So actually, how was that writing the script for the intro?
It was actually pretty easy because it's my company, and I really wanted to find a way to capture kind of what kweliTV means and what makes us different from other platforms that exist. So I wrote it literally in 2 minutes. I'm a writer by trade, not really script writing, but I was a journalist. And even as a kid, I used to write a lot. I used to write a lot of short stories and things like that. I actually wanted to be a novelist in one phase of my life. So writing actually comes fairly easy, but it was the first time actually writing a script that people would see and go out into the world.
Nice. Well, that intrigued me. That captivated me just watching that. So really good stuff. So I would like to dive in. I have my notes here on the side just in case I don't forget anything.
Okay.
But I would like to know, where are you from, and describe yourself. Who is DeShuna Spencer?
So I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I live in the DC area now. Who am I? It's interesting. Growing up, I wasn't exactly sure who I was. Mm-hmm. I think when you're growing up, there are people who you're around. You have to be one way around certain groups of friends at school, and then you're one way at home. And then I grew up in a very religious household, so you go to church, and then I was church DeShuna, and then I'm at home DeShuna, and then DeShuna with the friends, and people kind of put you in a box. And as you kind of get older, you start to grow as a person, but then people still sort of put you in the same box that you were in when you were younger. And so I didn't really know who I was until I would say college. I went to Jackson State University, and there was where I sort of became my own person. And for good or bad, for some people, like, oh, DeShuna, you changed. growing up, I was very shy. I was very quiet. I didn't have a lot of good, I didn't have self-esteem, and so in class, a lot of times I wouldn't talk because I thought I would say something stupid or, which is crazy to think that. But, I wasn't the type of person who would speak up because I wasn't sure how people would think about me. I had a bit of a stuttering issue. I had really bad teeth, really, really bad teeth. And I wasn't into college until I got braces because my parents were working class and they couldn't afford it. And so I remember, in college, like getting my braces and being really like, excited and getting more, self-esteem even from just getting braces, right? And so I would say that, I am authentic. I've learned to be myself and not be DeShuna for here and DeShuna for that person. And, however you get me, like that's who I am all the time. I don't do a lot of code switching, I mean, somewhat with some white friends, but for the most part, I don't. Like, you get what you get, and I would never shy away or diminish my Blackness to make other people feel comfortable. And that's what being authentic is. I'm also very passionate, which is sometimes good and bad. I'm very passionate about Black storytelling. I'm very passionate about changing Black narrative. I'm very passionate about Black people, like, really how we can come together as a community, not just in America, but globally. My husband, he first met me, he's called me Little Malcolm. And so I don't think I'm Little Malcolm in his sense, but I think for me, it's always been about like how can we come up together. That's always been sort of my vision, and I feel like for kweliTV, that's something that we're doing. And then I would say I'm very empathetic. And it's interesting because when I tell people that, they're like, well, why would someone call themselves empathetic? But I know my empathy level is pretty high. So when I was my first real job out of college, I applied for this job and they made me take a personality test. And because it was a management role, I was 24 years old at the time. I'm not going to say how old I am now, but I was 24 at the time. And they told me, it was for, like, I was going to have an assistant and like be in charge of a whole department. And they were like, at 24, which is insane, communications manager. But they were like, I don't know, like, I'm not sure if you'd be a good manager because your empathy is the highest we've ever seen. They actually flagged my empathy, like the company they hired, it flagged my empathy level and contacted my future employer saying, hey, just FYI, I'm not sure if she'll be a great manager because her empathy is the highest we've ever seen and who's ever taken this test ever. And they set me down. It's like, DeShuna, I think empathy is great, but sometimes it could be a detriment, to be a great leader. And what do you think about that? And, 24-year-old me was like, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't say it like that, I'm more professional, but I was like, I can't change who I am. Yes, I'm very empathetic, but, I think having empathy can be a positive, when it comes to managing people. So they did give me the job. So, but I've always known that I've had a lot of empathy because I worked in media and worked for daily news and writing about people getting shot and things being depressing things I would take it personally. I would go home and be depressed. And so I knew early on that I could not work in that industry like every day if it's like always interviewing people who have gone through tragedy, right? And then last thing I would say is I'm very stubborn, which a lot of people like oxymoron. How can you be, have empathy and be
empathetic on one hand, but like stubborn on another?
I'm very stubborn, like, and my husband's upstairs. He can definitely attest to that. And so can my parents. I don't take no for an answer. If I believe in something and I don't like when people tell me no, I don't. And I think like as a kid, it wasn't maybe always like for my parents, who wants a stubborn child, right? No one wants a stubborn. You want the child to listen to you and do everything that you say. Right. But I remember like being a kid, like I stopped getting whippings at like, in down south, we say whippings, we don't say spankings and all that. We say a whipping. And I got my last whipping when I was 9. And it's because I was determined not to get them anymore. I didn't like them, like most kids. Who likes a whipping, right? And so I remember, I don't know what I did, but I was like, I'm not going to cry. I'm going to stand here and it's going to take it. And so my mom, gets the belt and she's, giving me the whipping. I'm just standing there. It hurt, but I just stood there, like refused to cry. And my mom was like huffing and puffing and she was like, threw the belt down, like, I can't deal with you, DeShuna, and walked out. And that was like my last whipping. Like, it didn't work for me, but I got like take with my phone back in the day. I didn't even care about taking the TV, but take with my phone. Oh my God, like that hurt me way more than a whipping. And even like because I grew up in a religious household, like certain things I couldn't do, but I was stubborn, and so like I went to like a majorette. I couldn't do that because we danced and outfits were like skimpy, and I wanted to be a cheerleader. They danced, and outfits were short, and so I was like, well, what about being a flag girl? And I asked my parents first, and like, well, no, because they do. I was like, they don't really dance. My parents, I don't dance that much, and and it's more of a flag. I was trying to like be nice and not just go and be a majorette behind their back, but I at least wanted to do something that would not embarrass them, to the church. And so it's interesting because I went behind my parents' back and tried out to be a flag girl in my high school, and I got accepted. And I remember I forged my dad's signature, and I had a job at the time. Well, so like you're 15, you're 16. I was 16, and so you're underage, so anything you do in school, you have to forge your parents' signature. Well, if you're not gonna get your parents to
You're
do it,
not gonna, yeah.
no, kids don't forge your parents' signature.
Don't forge. Don't forge at all.
But that was the only way I could be a flag girl, and so I forged my parents' signature. And I remember a week before the first game, I had to tell them because the games were at night, and where are you going every Friday night, right? And so I told my mom first. I was like, Mom, I know you want me to do this, but I tried to put flag girl and I made the team, and she turned red because my mom's light skinned, and like, you're gonna tell your dad this time. I'm not gonna tell him something you did, like I feel bad because I feel like my parents probably had arguments because of me growing up. And so I told my dad, and he wasn't too happy about it, but I had a job, so I bought my own uniforms, had a car, so I was able to take myself to practice. They literally had to do anything, literally. And so what could they do? Like kick me out the house? So they could have, but they weren't going to do that just for me being a flag girl. So, me being stubborn, and it was like the best time of my life. I really enjoyed it. I really had fun doing it. And so it was like one of the best decisions I made was forge my dad's signature to be a flag girl.
Yeah. So kids, don't forge your parents' signature in this day and age. Don't do it. But do you feel that if you were to have like told your parents maybe like, hey, this is what I wanted to do you feel they would have signed that paper if you would maybe explain like, hey, I have my own job, I'm gonna get the uniform, or do you feel like you still have to kind of go that route?
So I'm not sure. It's interesting for people who never grew up in a like ultra religious household where like I couldn't wear pants. I could only listen to gospel music. Like it was like old school strict, right? Where women in my church, women they couldn't dye their hair. If you dye your hair, it was frowned upon, like you're committing a sin. Women didn't wear fingernail polish. Women didn't wear any makeup. People didn't go to the movies. Okay, this is okay. So that was looked down upon. Like even going to the movies or going to games. So you think that if people look down upon going to the movies, you think that my parents, no, it was a very interesting upbringing. My parents were doing the best they could because of the church, and the beliefs of the church. But I didn't necessarily believe in all of it. And so, no, they would have said no. I had asked them already and they said no. So, and they said no multiple times. So I was like, no, in my thinking, it's like, I'm not why? Like, I always wanted to know, like, why is this in the Bible? That was sort of my thinking. And if it didn't really, if I didn't believe, if I didn't buy into it, and then I did it anyway. That was sort of how I did it. So.
Right. Well, that even though some people might be like, oh, well, why? But you kind of, in a way, you progress. You showed responsibility, like, hey, this is what I wanted to do, but in the end, kind of like that end result, you paid for your uniform. They didn't really have to like drive you everywhere. Like you done everything to show like you can be responsible,
Right, right.
which is good, which is great. And I hope that your parents saw that moment, was like, "Oh, okay, she may have done this, but she's showing me this." And
Yeah. I think so. One of the things my parents always said, I was always a responsible kid. I was extremely responsible growing up. And so even if I like did things like that, I will still tell them, because I knew they would say no, but then like, oh, okay, Deshauna's going to be Deshana. That's kind of how it was. But, I had a job. I always like, and my parents were working class. And so one of the things wasn't really important to me was just making sure that I wasn't a burden. So like when I turned 16, I literally started buying my own clothes, and I paid for my senior pictures in my yearbook and my cap and gown, like because I wanted to not be a burden to my parents, right? And so, even if I'm going to go behind their back and do the signature, I'm still not going to be a burden. I'm not going to say, well, now you got to take me to practice, every day, and you got to pick me up. Nope, they don't have to do any of that. This was just something I personally wanted to do to grow as a person. But I will say that, one of the things about being stubborn growing up, it's like a lot of the attributes that I had as a kid, which made some parents maybe like, oh my God, as an adult, it was very helpful because, in some ways you have to really stand up for things you believe in, and or be that voice and not back down. And I remember like a couple of like years ago, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer. He's a non-smoker, and I was, it was for my mom. It was a lot, like she's been married to someone over 30 years, and now he has a stage 3 cancer, and she spent her time just taking care of him, and I moved back to Memphis for 5 weeks to help my mom. And during the time, I was his biggest advocate, like to the doctors, because it was just a lot for my mother. And so I was helping her be her voice. And I remember my uncle, Clarence, he was like, I'm so glad you're here, Deshana. They said you're a pit bull. I'm so happy. I'm like, pit bull. I guess. But yeah, I don't play that when it comes to my family. Right. My husband, when he's sick, everyone knows that I don't play. And so while as a kid, it's not always a good attribute, I think as an adult, I was a very big advocate. I would talk to doctors anytime there was something. I would do research and say, have we tried this? Have we tried that? I wanted to make sure my dad, stayed with us. Thank God he's still here, but I was very adamant about things. And I think that, like you said, it's just cured me throughout my life.
Well, that definitely is a great attribute, like maybe as like a teenager, parents don't see it like, but when you get an adult, yeah, that definitely comes in handy. Now, I wanted to interview you, one, because you are the founder, the creator of kweliTV, but was there anyone in your family who was an entrepreneur? And was kweliTV your first like endeavor? Was that the first thing you wanted to do?
So I want to say my parents have been very entrepreneurial. So like, for instance, my dad's a pastor, so he has his own church, so that's a business. Mm-hmm. And also as a kid, when he wasn't like the pastor of his own church, he was like an assistant pastor. He used to spray homes like for roads, like he did that as a side gig just to make extra money. My dad's a truck driver forever. He loved being a truck driver, but he used to do that on the side. And my mom has always been very entrepreneurial as well. She started daycare at the house, and she has this really big passion for little kids. And so I think that's where it sparked in me. I think they've always been sort of like doing things their own way. And I basically learned from them, how to sort of put yourself out there. And like my mom, I always tell people, give kudos to my mom. I mean, she went back to college in her 30s. She graduated college in her 40s, became a school teacher, and then started like a daycare center. And she's done like music and, so many other amazing things. And so it all sparked from them.
Nice. That's really awesome. Now, was Quay like your first endeavor? That was that the like idea in your head? Like, I want to create a streaming service, because when I think about it, there's no like playbook on creating a streaming service. Like, you can't go to a library and find a book on this is how you properly make a streaming service. Step one. So how did that all come about, if that was your first endeavor?
Yeah, it was not. So my initial dream was to start an online magazine, and I thought that would be sort of my legacy. And so the reason I got my job, my first job with the organization in the DC area, is because I wanted to learn more about the business side of things. Even though I worked for a company, when you work for a newspaper, you're writing stories. You're not in the rooms, in the meetings where they're budgeting and how much this cost. Like, you don't know that stuff. All you're doing is cranking out stories, interviewing people and writing them, and doing that every single day. And so I knew that I wanted to start a media company, and I knew that I didn't have any experience managing budgets and teams and things like that. And so I took this job. Literally, like, my goal was this would be my last job. Like, this is the last place I want to work. Like that, I want this to be the first and last place I work, right? And so I took this job, and had an assistant, and I managed 10 freelance writers who wrote for me every single month, and I was in charge of the entire the entire publication, like literally from beginning to end, and selling, making sure I stayed on budget because we had advertisers and all these things that media companies do. Like, I was learning how to do that within this company. This is a membership organization, but within the membership organization, they had a really robust media or part of it. And so that was my role, as time went on, incorporating video and making sure, our social media accounts were, up to date, and creating video messages with the president, ghostwriting articles for the president, all these things that I had never done before, and keeping the marketing like calendar, and how to market. I don't know any of that stuff, and I learned it all through that company. And so I always tell people, it's really great to jump in and start businesses, but I was very intentional about the jobs that I wanted, out of college, because I knew I wanted to start something. And so I just didn't want to take any writing. I didn't want to take this another writing job. I chose not to work for another media organization, because I knew I wanted to start initially an online magazine. And while working there, I did start this online magazine called Empower Magazine, and it focused on social justice issues affecting people of color. And while I was working on the magazine, I also hosted a radio show in DC called Empower Hour. It was on 89.3 FM, WPFW. I created an awards show called the Empower Players Awards, similar to Senior Heroes, that really focused on honoring people of color, mostly Black and Latinos, who were making an impact in the community. It could have been someone starting a nonprofit, or it could have been a teacher who goes out of their way, type of thing. I did that for a few years. And then the idea for kweliTV popped in my head one day, and the rest is history. But I wasn't sure if kweliTV was going to be my life's work, or if Empower is going to be my life's work. And I was really afraid to let Empower go, because I'm stubborn. And I felt like if I let this go, that means I failed at that. But now look at this pivoting, right? Instead of, writing articles, now instead of using the written word to amplify Black stories, amplify Black life, and change the narrative, now we're doing it through films, documentaries, and animation. And so now I see it now more as a pivot versus a failure, and I'm okay with that.
Nice. Now, kweliTV, the name,
Mm-hmm.
where did that come from?
So kweli, it means truth in Swahili. And when I was thinking about creating a streaming service, I knew that I wanted it to be an African language. And I chose Swahili as the language mainly because most people, at least in the US, know Swahili is an African language. They may not know about Yoruba and Zulu, all the other ones, but most people, even if you're white, know that Swahili is a language, especially because of Kwanzaa. And so I wanted to pick a language that most people knew existed. And then when it came to, kweli, I wanted the word to mean something, right? And so I've always wanted to create something that's authentic and truthful. And I saw kweli, and I was thinking, should I use that? It's Talib Kweli, like, what people, and some people do get confused, but I thought the name was too powerful not to use it. And I was thinking, well, there's Spike TV, and there's Spike Lee, and there's The Roots, and there's Root Magazine. So I was like, don't worry about it, DeShuna. Like, you're not, if people don't get it, they don't get it. And so that was pretty much how I started to, like I said, it was very intentional with the name.
Right. Now, how did you start your journey? And like, who kind of helped you within that journey as you started the company?
So like I said, when I started kweliTV, I was working on Empower, and I did not have anyone, like I was the solo founder, and when I was thinking of this idea, early on, there weren't a lot of resources. As you mentioned, there isn't a book. So like when I started Empower, like literally there's a book called, starting an online magazine for dummies. So there literally is a book called that. There is no how to start a streaming service for dummies. It just doesn't exist. And most streaming companies don't want you competing with them. So they're not going to willy-nilly give their playbook out. And so when I was like, okay, how do I do this? This is not online magazine. I just can't get a glorified WordPress site and make it happen. I ended up going to the only person I know who knew something about tech, because I'm not a technical founder. One of my board members from my online magazine, I approached him and I said, hey, his name is Max. And I was telling him that, I'm looking to start the streaming service. I don't know the first thing about like tech. And I was looking online and seeing that the tech that's needed to start this is, a much higher pay grade than I have. And so we sat down, had a couple of conversations about how I could build it. At the time, I was in a competition for this business plan competition for $20,000. There were 10 of us who were all, in running to get it. Only two of us would get the money out of 10 people. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to get the money, but I was still talking to him and talking with some developers he had suggested that I work with. And that's kind of how we got started from there. He was the first person that really sort of spoke to about it and, kind of guided me away, at least on the tech side of things, because I think like that's the first part of it is tech. Now, the film part, I had no background in the film industry. Like I said, I worked for newspapers. I did one documentary, screened at one film festival. So it wasn't like I had made my film festival rounds and, I had business cards. I remember thinking, I'm going to get partnerships with film festivals. And so I remember looking online and getting a database of about, 20 Black film festivals and reaching out to them via email, like, hi, here's online magazine. I'm looking to pivot to kweliTV, blah, blah, blah. No, none of them got back to me, like not one. And so I was like, okay, so I won't get content that way. I'm going to have to figure out another way. And so it was really literally me just cold emailing, filmmakers and trying to get content, for our launch, and I won the money, I won a competition, and I used that money to build the beta platform.
Nice. That's awesome. So where do you get your content from? Is it self-produced? Is it partnerships? Do people send it all in? Like where do you get all of the different content?
So a number of different ways. People can submit content to kweliTV. They go to our website, kweli.tv. If you click the little first scroll down, it's like mission, you see submit, and it has directions on how to submit content for consideration. So we get content that way. We do get content from film festivals. And so, we have some partnerships with some film festivals that say, hey, we finished our film festival for the year. We think these titles would be a great fit for kweliTV. And that's how we get content. we build partnerships with distributors, as well, who, for they have Black content in general, and we're a home for that content. And so that's how we get content in numerous ways.
Nice. Now, how do you determine what goes on the stream? Because I know probably a lot of people are just want to get their short or their
Hmm.
movie, documentary, scene. What is that process like? How do you determine what goes on there?
So it's interesting because we get a lot of submissions, and people submit to us, and then 1 week later, like, I haven't heard back from you. You do want my content or not? I'm like, it's just like, we're swamped. We're a small company,
Right.
but it's hard picking content. We're curators, and so one of the things I always tell people, like, just because you made a Black film, it doesn't mean it's going to be on a platform, because our goal is about telling authentic Black stories, changing the Black narrative, and so if you don't fit that model, you don't make it on the platform. Very adamant about that. Any movie, and I know that it's a part of our. It's a gangster movies where it's about like drug deals, and it's something that won't go on the platform. I know that is a part of some people's lives, but I just feel like when it comes to mainstream media, we've been oversaturated with those types of stories, and so I choose not to put them on the platform. And some people don't agree with that, but I'm like, there are so many other platforms that show those films, so just put it on there, like, we're in it. Just like you go to HGTV, you're not going to submit to them, something for Food Network, right? And so,
Right.
but people think it's Black, it's a Black film. It was at the film festival, okay, but sorry, this is showing a negative stereotype, and this is what we're trying not to do. And so I'm very critical about that. I look, even to a point where different types of people, like we've gotten films that like comedies, and let's say if the gay character is unrealistic, like I have gay friends, and like this one film, the guy was a comedy, and the gay guy who was Latino, like Puerto Rican or something, and he was like, pinching people's butts in the office, and I'm like, first of all, I don't know any gay Black man who would. That's like sexual harassment, but it was for comic relief. I'm like, but that's not authentic, like. And so I chose not to do it because to me it showed gay men in a very negative light, and so I'm very adamant and very sensitive about, how people are stereotyped. I know comedies go overboard, when it comes to certain things, but he was just so over the top. I was like, come on, like, this is not even real. And so I don't know. I'm just really adamant about that. One of the things we're not doing is like slavery movies at this moment because customers don't want to see it. They want it. They're traumatized and triggered by what's happening just on a regular with Black people and the Black men getting shot and seeing pictures of, Black men being murdered. And so showing slavery or anything that's triggering, we're taking a pause on that right now because with the pandemic and with everything else that's going on, how everything is affecting Black people more. I'm all about healing, and okay, I want to make sure that this is entertaining, this is healing, this is celebration. This isn't like I'm walking away from this like, oh my God, like I'm triggered by it. And so I'm really thinking we think long about that when it comes to adding content to the platform, but no negative stereotypes, nothing that's buffoonery. It doesn't make it on the platform at all. I'm really critical about that.
Right. I truly believe that, and we got some awesome comments here in the chat too. That's awesome. Yeah, encouraging many young people and others will get their plans and ideas. Yes,
Okay.
yes. But so that leads me to another question before we kind of play like this fun lightning round.
Okay.
But how is kweliTV celebrating Black History Month? We're right in like the beginnings of Black
Mhm.
History Month right now. So like how is the company celebrating Black history and reaching out there?
So yeah, so I will say that, first, as a Black company focusing on Black content, we celebrate Black history every month.
Yes.
For us, it's not just in February. And so whenever we release content, we're always adding documentaries. It's really interesting when a lot of other platforms think about Black History Month. Oh, now we're going to show the Black documentaries. And now we're going to, okay, we add Black documentaries every month, like
Right.
historical every month. So it could be November and we still have that. And so for me, February is just another way to amplify Black stories, but our mission doesn't change because it hits March, right? Okay, now we're going to focus on something else. But I will say, one of the things we're doing is, we're doing some conversations with some of our filmmakers. We're doing live chats with filmmakers on our social media, so people can get to know some of our filmmakers on our platform. And we also have what's called Deals with Black-owned businesses. So we're going to be doing interviews with them. And then we're also doing, we have a live channel, and we're doing historical documentaries every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And so that's basically how we're celebrating Black History Month. But like I said, for us, it's every day.
Every day. Yes, there you go. There you go. So now we're gonna kind of break a little bit from the interview questions and
Okay.
do a quick lightning round. The woman behind kweliTV. Ready? All right. So here we go. What's your first job as a teenager?
I worked there briefly, but it was called Piccadilly's. It was like a restaurant where you like cafeteria style restaurant they have down south. That was my first job. Only lasted like 3 months, and then my next job was Blockbuster, and I worked there for a couple of years.
Nice. Name a Black show that you grew up watching.
Different World, I guess that's the first thing that popped in my mind.
A recent film you've watched on kweliTV.
I watch everything because it's curated, but I would say Vanille. It's a really good, it's a really cute short animation I think people should check out.
Nice. Childhood nickname.
I didn't have a childhood. I don't like nicknames. So I didn't have a childhood nickname. My dad and my husband calls me Shauna sometimes, but nope, it's DeShuna.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. I hate coffee.
Introvert or extrovert?
I'm in the middle, I think.
I think they call it an omni.
Yes, omni something. So yeah. So it's like when I'm in public, I can be extrovert. I feel for people's energy, but I can also be alone at the same time. So I can be both.
Right. And vacation dream spot.
I would say maybe Zanzibar or something like that. Somewhere on some island off the coast of Africa.
Nice. Oh yeah, I would probably rather go there because it's kind of cold right now over here.
Yeah.
Yes. So it'll probably be great weather.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was preparing for this interview, one of my good friends, Key, I was telling her, hey, I'm going to be doing this interview. I'm like super excited. And she is like into the producing and things like that. And I was like, well, I would love for you to ask DeShuna a question. So she gave me like a few, and I would like to put these up on the screen if you would like to answer them. All right. So here is the first question from Key.
Hey, DeShuna. My name is Key, and I'm with curated. I just have a couple questions.
I can't hardly hear it. It's really low. Maybe we should turn it.
Okay, let me bring it up a little bit louder.
The development process. Did you go with an in-house developer or partner with any streaming companies?
So the question was, when you was building out kweliTV, did you go with any in-house developers or any like streaming partners when developing it?
So the beta, we built it from scratch. This was years ago, and now there are more companies are making it easier for companies to build out streaming services. So we do have a streaming partner now, But yeah, day one, it was from scratch. Literally, like it was clunky. It works like quite so well. But now we work with this streaming partner.
Nice. And final question.
And for my last question, can you describe the process with getting your app aggregated on different media streaming platforms? Like, was the process smooth or did you have any challenges?
So it depends on the platform. So one of the things that people don't realize is that like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick, iOS, and like Google Play mobile apps, places like that, you can just create a developer account and you can create apps, and it can tie your API from your website to those apps. And people, the thing is, you may have to have different people who know how to build those apps, because the code, how the code for Roku is different from Apple TV. So someone may know how to build an Apple TV app, but they may not know how to build a Roku app. And so you may need different people to build those apps for you. But it's very easy. You just, sign up for a developer's account, hire a developer, they deploy it, those platforms test it, and then once it passed all the tests, it goes live, easy peasy, right? So that's much easier. Platforms like Comcast and Cox, Zumo, Pluto, Samsung channels, Roku channels. Yeah, it's not so easy, like Sling TVs and ATT Plus. It's about, in a way, it's kind of who you know, in a way. And I get on Comcast first because I know someone who works at Comcast. And his name is Tony Williams. Thank you so much, Tony. I've known Tony for a long time. Ever since I had my radio show, I met him when I had my radio show on 89.3 FM. And he, at the time, was like a VP. Now he's like executive something at Comcast. But it was him and someone else, and they were talking about some program they were doing at Comcast. And my initial ask for them was for my Empower Players Awards and what I was doing for nonprofits, and they were our major sponsor for that event. And so as time went on, I kept in contact with him, and I told him about kweliTV, about I told him about the idea before there was a website, before anything. And I was asking him, like, how easy is it to get on these platforms and or at least get on Comcast? And he was like, the content has to be good, DeShuna. As long as the content is good and there's enough of it, we can talk. And so, literally, once we finally launched out of beta, this was years later, he emailed me and said, hey, DeShuna, I think I didn't email him, he emailed me. It's like, I think you're it's time now. I think, you're in a good position to make the connection to the powers that be in charge of, because he's in charge of the stuff in DC, more policy stuff. And he didn't really have anything to do with the people in Philly when it came to content curation. And so it kind of started from there. And, being on Comcast really helped, have conversations with other platforms, because Comcast is very strict. They don't let anyone on the platform. Right. So, once you're on Comcast, it makes it easier to open up those doors. So to answer a question, it's getting on those platforms is harder. Typically, companies with bigger name recognition will get preference because they're more known, blah, blah, blah. And versus companies like mine. But once you get on one, able to somehow get on one, it makes it easier to sell your case and pitch, your product to other companies.
True. Once you get on one, it then will trickle out and lead to more. So awesome. Thank you so much for answering Key's questions. So now I want to dive into probably maybe not the most fun thing to talk about, but what are some of the unique challenges of being a female founder?
So, it's interesting. I always say it's interesting. It's interesting. I said the word a lot. It's been a really interesting journey. When I started kweliTV, like I said, when I had my online magazine, there really wasn't a lot of upfront costs. I could manage, paying people. We just had ads, that type of thing. Right. And so I didn't know anything about the VC world. I didn't know anything about pitch competitions. I didn't know anything about vesting and 1-year cliffs and convertible notes and safe notes, and I don't know anything about that stuff. And so it was challenging first learning that, and then two, understanding that, oh, okay, I'm a woman and I'm Black, so it's like a double whammy. No double whammies, no big
Yeah,
bucks.
no way we stop. Yep.
I know. And yeah, it's double whammy. It's double whammy. I'm Black and I'm a woman, right? It is what it is. But I didn't know that it was that hard, right? So I remember like trying to pitch and then not understanding sort of like how to find investors. And I remember going online and researching investors who I thought would fit into like kweliTV's type of mission, and like media investors or whatever, SaaS. And so they would have these they had these websites, well, we typically, only reach out to people through a connection. Feel free to still, I would send my stuff, my deck, or you can look at our LinkedIn page. I'm not sure if LinkedIn still does that, where you can like see like the chain of people attached to that person.
Yeah.
Does LinkedIn still do that? I don't even know. So I would click, I would, take the bait and I would click like some VCs, LinkedIn account, and it would be like me and like 18 people between me and this VC. Like, there's no way in the world.
No way to jump from there to right.
It would take a lot. Like, there's no way. Like, I would know if the first two people after that, like it would be impossible. It's like, wow, like 18 people between me and this VC. Like, this is being impossible for me to do. I didn't go to Stanford either. I didn't work at Google or Pinterest, before launching the company. I just had no connections. And so it was really hard. And it took us over 2 years to launch on the beta. The day we launched beta on kweliTV, we had customers. Within 30 days, we were making money, not globs of money, but we had customers and people were liking what we were doing. The issue was that we just couldn't launch out of beta. We just couldn't get the money that we needed to do more and to grow. And so I became very disheartened about the whole aspect of the VC tech, world. And after over 2 years trying to figure out like, okay, how can we move to the next level? I was like, I'm not going to wait for someone to say, DeShuna, we're going to give you an opportunity. And that's the stubborn part in me, right? I'm like, some bro in Silicon Valley is not going to make or break my company. If you don't give me money, it means we don't exist. No, I don't think so. I would never allow that to happen. And so I'll try to figure out how can we make this happen despite that. And that's why I started doing pitch competitions. I won a few grants. I've got a few convertible notes, but it's only equal to like 100K in the last like five years since trying to build the company till today. I've only got 100K in convertible notes. Like, that's it. That's not like I raised $1 million seed round. Nowhere near. In pitch competitions, like that's how I've been able to keep things going. And when I go to speaking engagements, it's really interesting because it's interesting. People still don't know the numbers. So I tell people like, as a Black woman, like, what do you think, what's the percentage of investments we get every year? So people spit out, oh no, like 10%, 20% of investments every year, 5%. One person like, I don't know, it's probably like 3%. It's probably really low. I tell people actually for women, it's like 2 to 3%, like women, which mostly goes to white women. So white women are getting close to 2 to 3%. What do you think Black women are getting, right? We're getting 0.2. We get 0.2. And honestly, like for white women, it's still horrific. Like, women make up half the population, right, but women only get like a little over 2%. It's ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. And last year was really interesting because there were so many, the white male VCs, like, I'm going to spend June and July talking to Black, but because of George Floyd, a bunch of, bros in Silicon Valley, let's talk to a bunch of Black people, and it was mostly just talk, I'm disheartened when it comes to investors. And I have a different approach about, do I want an investor? I want some person who doesn't understand my industry telling me what I should do with my company. I'm always leery about that now. And so I don't know. I feel like it hasn't quite changed. I think that there has been some progress, but after doing like the numbers in end of last year, it's still the same for Black men. I think Black men is like 1%. White, well, I say women, but it's mostly white women. It's like, a little over 2%. and Black women it's like 0.2. I mean, it really hasn't changed at all. So all the work that they were saying they were doing last year to be more inclusive, it really didn't amount to much of anything.
This world has to do better. This world has to do better.
It does.
And it makes me think about something. I think
yeah, I'm sorry.
it's
I live in like in an urban type of environment, so someone else's car going off, and yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You know what? That's the fun part of live podcasts. You know, it's fine. So that kind of led up to my next question and the story of Quibi. The story of Quibi raising. This is astronomical to me. $2 billion in funding, and months later, their mobile video fizzled out. Their mobile video platform fizzled out. Why is it that a company like that can raise so much money? Is it the founders? Is it the color of someone's skin? Is it the what is it? Like, why is it that Quibi, who failed, CEO still get this $1 million check, $1 billion in funding, failed, but can still progress and can still sell their videos afterwards to maybe the Rokus of the world and to this platform and that platform. And it's like, oh, it's okay. We could try something else. Like, why is that?
I don't know. I would say that, white people get more chances than we do. I think that's a heavy burden for Black people. It's like, failing for us means we fail our community. As a Black woman, if I fail, if my company fails and people give me a lot of money, then people may not give a Black woman who wants to start a media company money. And so like because I'm representing my entire race. When you're a white person, you represent yourself, right? So there's a big difference. I would say that the guy who started Quibi, he had a long like a lot of connections, a lot of experience in the industry, and so because he had those connections, it was very easy for him to raise money because he had a track record, not really in other ways in other companies, and so people thought, oh, he's done well here. Of course, he can do well, elsewhere. I think where Quibi went wrong, number one, it's all about timing. And if this weren't COVID, maybe they would be okay, because the whole point of Quibi was I can watch a little bit of content between things, going to the store and walking somewhere, which I also felt like it was a very urban type of company. Like being in Memphis, I'm not sure people would participate in Quibi. You're not walking, you're not taking a subway anywhere. You're in your car most of the time. It's not, you're not waiting. Like it's like being up north or west where there's subways, and I live in a walkable community, or I wait in line, like that type of activity, like that's what people do in really like urban centers. But if you live in an urban center in Houston, you're not necessarily going to do that. And so I didn't think they really thought that through of, sort of how they were positioning and marketing the company, only having, bite-sized stories. Number two, they got a lot of money because there's this thing about in VCs is about FOMO, the fear of missing out. And everyone at Grandma Disney and Comcast and everyone under the sun gave them money because they saw, oh wow, Verizon gives them money. Okay, who's giving them money? Like, I think they feel like if we don't give them money and they succeed, then we're gonna be the ones who missed out on this opportunity. And so because of that, and because of his track record, people are like, well, we got to give him money, and we can't be the only ones. We can't be left out. And so that's how I was able to raise so much money. Number three, they were number three now. Another issue is that, he was trying to compete with Netflix day one. I'm not trying to compete with Netflix. I would never, maybe one day, right? But like right now, like I'm competing with myself. I'm competing with sort of what my goals and dreams are. And Netflix, even Disney's not trying to compete with them in this way. Like you can't outspend them with content. You just can't, right? to keep up that train, your business will be dead. And I think that, they spent all this money getting the most, famous, A-list actors to be a part of Quibi. They're in the commercials. They're printing content. Every famous person, Will Smith and Chris Rock, and I was going to say, I can't think of his name, other comedian, but um, everyone under the sun, had their own show. And I'm sure they wanted top dollar for this content, and so and to pay them top dollar, right? And so to have all these A-list people and to create all these shorts on the platform to keep cranking out content, it was just it was too much. And while they had like, and then another thing was like they had like a 9-month like trial or something like that. In a way, like, oh yeah, that's what Apple TV Plus does. But it's Apple. Apple can afford to do that. You're a startup. You cannot afford to give people a 9-month, trial. And I guess we're thinking, well, and I think also that even though it was a 9-month trial, they thought more people would sign up. Like, okay, the trial's 9 months. They thought maybe they would get like half of, like maybe like 500 million. This is where I don't know what their goal was, but whatever goal it was, they didn't meet it. And another issue with having all that money from a VC, if you get almost $2 billion from investors, they want a lot more subscribers than what you were able to produce. And what happens? They don't give you more money because now they don't have faith in you anymore. And so that is one of the issues of having an investor, because people give these unrealistic, sometimes in my opinion, goals. We're going to have 2 million subscribers by Q1, with the money you gave us. If you don't do it, then investors like turn their backs on you sometimes. Sometimes they may give you more money. Okay, let's try this different strategy. But then I think they realize, okay, we trying to compete with Netflix. Like, come on now. It was just so much money and they just couldn't produce that way. I think that the pandemic really hurt them tremendously. Like, people aren't watching bite-sized things. They want to sit at home for hours and watch content because that's what everyone's doing right now, sitting at home for hours.
That's true. That is so true. And thank you for sharing that insight. I truly agree with that. Definitely the pandemic definitely like hindered them. Maybe they overshot too far.
Mm-hmm.
And when you invest or have investors invest almost 2 billion, they want that return on investment
right
away.
Mm-hmm.
So I truly agree.
And I only had mobile apps because the whole goal was for people to watch quickly. Like, you're in the subway, you're, waiting. So so they didn't have apps on Roku, Apple TV. They didn't have any of those apps because they weren't even thinking about, people want to watch this on their TVs. And so they just weren't thinking clearly about sort of how people watch content. And they just were so dead set on, having people watch it one way. They had to go back and now let's try to build some apps. But you've raised almost $2 billion. You don't have an app on Roku? Are you serious?
Yes, that is true. That's true. Like you need your app on like at least the major platforms: Chromecast, Roku, Apple, you name it.
Right, exactly.
To reach that market.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question. I keep saying that. Sorry, I can't help it. I'm not sure if there's anything that I wish I had known, because my entire career, I've sort of not listened to what the society says about me or where I could be. I just sort of said, okay, if I want to do this, I'm gonna see how I can make it happen. I think that one lesson I would have, and I would maybe do differently, if I were to go back, and is I trusted a lot of people early on who sometimes they have great intentions. My empathy level is high, so I would hold on to team members or certain things longer than I should have, and then we lost money, we lost time because of it. And one of the things I'm learning now is that if I see something that I may not be the best fit for kweliTV, or even like for instance, whatever, like just cut it off, versus trying to salvage something that maybe this person would change, or maybe they will do. No, I don't have as much patience as I used to for that, and I'm doing a much better job at sifting through people who I think would be a good fit, versus having a warm, because when you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a lot of staff around you, you're bootstrapping, and people have good intentions and want to help out, but a lot of times they don't understand the real work that goes behind running a company, and a startup company that doesn't want the money, and people that aren't as dedicated. I don't expect anyone to be up to 3 a.m. like I am a lot of times. I don't expect that. I'm not that mean. I'm like Away. I'm not sure if you've heard about Away and the fiasco there, how they were treating employees. I would never ask anyone to do that. But there is, I want you to at least give 100% if when you're with me, and I didn't always get that from a lot of people. And so, I stuck with them because like, well, I don't have a lot of money to give them. So it's because of me, and I just have to deal with it, just have a warm body in bed with you at night, and so I've learned that I'll sleep alone, versus having someone who doesn't want to be there fully, for the company.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that insight. So we're gonna wrap up right now, but I want to talk about kind of like your goals and everything. So why you? Why do you think you can do this? Be the one to create a global Black streaming service.
So I will say that like, why not me, right?
Right.
I think anyone can create anything if they're passionate about it and believe that that's their calling or mission.
Mhm.
And so I believe that this is what I'm meant to do. And so that's why it's me. If you were to look at me on paper, I didn't, work for any studio or, worked at Netflix first or, did, movies. So on paper, people may question why me, but I'm also very passionate and I know how to get things done. I can know how to figure things out. And
Right.
that has sort of helped me kind of get to where I am today. And so I think, why not me? Why not anyone? Why not anyone? I think anyone who has goals and visions and dreams. Why not you?
I agree. I so agree. Now, what is your goal for kweliTV in 2021 and beyond?
Definitely global, working to be more global, trying to make sure our content is multilingual to reach our larger international audience. We're going to be adding some ancillary products on kweliTV soon. I can't really mention a lot of it right now, but we're going to be adding some things to the platform maybe in the quarter three. We'll see how that goes. And a lot of things are like in the works, so I can't really like say, what we're working on, but just
Right.
know that it's the future of kweliTV is beyond movies. I'll just say that.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to watch that journey. So, where can our listeners connect with you online, and where can they find kweliTV?
Yeah, so they can connect with kweliTV, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter is at KWELITV, which you can see on the screen there. And then go to our website. It's www.kweli.tv. And you can watch us on our website, a live channel, or on demand. We're also on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, iOS, and Google Play for Android, as well as Comcast and Cox, and a new live streaming company called Distro TV. It's like we have a live channel on Distro TV as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, DeShuna Spencer, for taking the time out, doing this podcast, telling your story. I hope everyone had a great time learning about kweliTV. and hopefully you can find a documentary that you like. I would love to have a conversation on that. This is Errol E, Every Moment with Errol E, signing out. Thank you very much.